rage, stay in your lane, turn the page, but something woke up deep inside, a stronger voice, a wilder ride. I've paid my dues, I know my worth, I've fallen down, I've had rebirth. Now I'm standing in my truth, not chasing time, I'm choosing me. I've got wisdom in my bones, fire in my soul. This isn't the ending, this is the moment I take control. Life gets better after 40, clearer vision, brighter glow. I'm not fading, I'm ascending. This is the best I've ever known. Stronger, bolder, unapologetic. I'm just getting started, don't you see? 40's forward, this is my time. The future's finally looking like me.
Welcome to 40s Forward Podcast, where we don't age quietly, we age boldly. I'm Dr. Betsy Greenleaf, triple board certified, root cause obsessed, microbiome loving, pelvic peace bringing champion for everyone who wants to look great, feel great, and perform great in life, work, and absolutely in the bedroom. So if you're 40 and you're thinking, why is my body behaving like a moody teenager with a mortgage? You're in the right place. So let's move 40s forward together, because we're not going downhill, we're leveling up. You know, that also brings me to this idea of going, that phrase like, it's all downhill from here. I never really understood that phrase, because I don't know if you've ever ridden a bicycle, but riding a bicycle uphill is a lot harder than going downhill. It's pretty much the whole smooth sailing. So I don't like the whole idea and phrases of we're over the hill and we're going downhill. Like, downhill is a good thing. Like, things should be getting easier. We're just sliding into the best phases of our lives. So today we're going to be talking about one of the most confusing and honestly most misunderstood areas of midlife health: hormones. So if you've ever been told your hormones are normal, if you've tried hormone therapy and thought, why do I feel worse, or why am I not even feeling any better? If you're confused about estrogen, afraid of testosterone, and frustrated that nothing is working, this episode is going to shift your entire perspective. So let's break it down. The truth about hormone therapy, the real science, the real mistakes, and the real reasons people don't feel better. Your hormones aren't broken, they're just misunderstood. And that misunderstanding ends today. So let's start with the basics. And by basics, I do not mean what's taught in most exam rooms or in most medical schools. Hormones are not just sex hormones. They're your body's entire communication network. They control your metabolism, your mood, your energy, your confidence, your libido, your memory, your muscles, your skin, your inflammation, and your ability to handle stress, your aging process itself, and so many more things in between. Hormones are like Wi-Fi of your body. When they're strong, everything connects. But when they're glitchy, suddenly nothing works. And here's what most people don't realize. Hormones don't work individually. They work as teams, as networks, as ecosystems. And you don't have an estrogen problem or a testosterone problem or a thyroid problem. You have a hormone synergy problem. So when estrogen dips, but cortisol rises, when testosterone is low, but sex hormone binding globulin is high, when your thyroid number looks fine, but your cells can't use it, when progesterone drops and sleep falls apart, when insulin creeps up and metabolism slows down, everything affects everything else. So this is why traditional medicine often fails midlife women and men. It looks at hormones instead of the whole symphony. So why most hormone therapy doesn't work? Well, most providers test the wrong labs. And this is like, I don't want to be harping on the practitioners, because honestly, This is what they've been taught, and they're only doing what they're taught. It's just that the science is old, the science has failed, and the science isn't innovative. It's not looking at the right things. So here's what's happening is 90% of the time, the practitioner or doctor will check estradiol and maybe testosterone if you're lucky. But what they're missing is progesterone, DHEA, the cortisol rhythm or the cortisol pattern, because a cortisol level just in and itself doesn't tell the whole picture. We need the actual picture. Insulin resistance, thyroid conversion, free T3, reverse T3, sex hormone binding globulin, inflammatory levels, gut and liver markers. Your hormones don't live in a vacuum, and they live in your chemistry, and your chemistry is not just one chemical reaction. It is a process and a symphony of reactions. So people get the wrong form or the wrong dose of hormones. This is a big one. Pellets are great for some people, disastrous for others. Topicals work beautifully on some bodies, poorly on others. Pills, not my favorite, but for some, they are an option, but not for others. There's no one size fits all in hormone therapy. And this is incredibly important, not only for you as the consumer, but for as practitioners when they're addressing their patients. The moment someone says everyone should get pellets or everyone should be on patches, that's a red flag, a big giant red flag. Your physiology deserves customization. Hormones are given without supporting the foundations. So this is really important. I recently took my board certification in OBGYN, and there was an exam question that talked about a patient comes in and wants their hormones done because their friend is getting hormones. Your next step is, and the answers were just give them hormones. The other answers were like test their serum, test their saliva, test hormones. And when it came down to it, now what I would do in real life is I'd be testing hormones, and I prefer some of the advanced testing. Now, what the answer turned out to be was just put them on hormones. And that's what our practitioners have been trained. And basically because of we don't have great science coming out exactly mapping out how this should be done. So the default answer is like just put them on hormones and adjust. Well, I'm going to challenge that idea, because how can you treat what you can't test? And now testing doesn't give you like, okay, your test equals A, so then give B and you're going to get C result. The testing gives you guidelines of where to go. And testing is more important as we follow numbers over time. It's following the patterns, not the levels. All right, so here's the other thing. You cannot throw estrogen or testosterone as stressed, inflamed, sleep-deprived, protein-deficient body and expect magic. What we need, hormones need everything to support. So remember, hormones are just one tool in the toolbox. And to get that tool to work properly, the body has to be prepared. We need things like sleep, healthy diet, adequate hydration, strength training, gut health, a functioning liver, stable blood sugar, low inflammation, micronutrients, mitochondrial support. So hormone therapy without foundations is like buying a Ferrari and never changing the oil. It's just not going to work right. People expect hormones to fix everything immediately. Now, first of all, it didn't happen overnight that you are in the situation with your body. So it's not going to get fixed overnight, which we would love that to happen, but that's not the reality. So hormones are helpful and they're powerful, but they're not the only piece. So hormones are like house guests, and they need a house to be in order. So when we put the hormones in, if there's no bedding, there's no sheets, there is not hot water, there is not, a nice comfortable thermostat and temperature, the house guest is not going to be happy. So we need those hormones to work properly. We need the body prepared. All right, so now let's get into some hormone myths that are ruining people's health. This section is going to make some of you say, now I get it. These myths are everywhere. They're online, they're in clinics, they're in articles, everywhere. So let's get to it. Myth number 1, my hormones are normal because my labs say so. First of all, no. Numbers don't show the whole story. Symptoms, patterns, and physiology added together equals truth. So if your practitioner isn't already doing this, what I highly recommend is get your labs. Make a spreadsheet, whether it's on Google Sheets or Excel or whatever. Follow the levels, graph them out, and follow them with symptoms, because here's the thing. Nature will show patterns. Your hormones will show patterns, and the patterns will tell you exactly what you need. This is something that we do on every single one of my patients, is follow the patterns of the hormones. Because here's the thing, a high hormone level maybe mean it's high, or maybe it's normal for you. A low hormone level may be normal for you. In fact, actually, here's a little story about the very first patient that I did hormones on. Was a woman in her mid-60s, low sex drive, vaginal dryness, hair was falling out, moodiness, hot flashes, everything you can think of. And so when she came in, we tested her hormones, and of course, her estrogen was low, her testosterone was low, her DHEA was low, everything was low. Fast forward, put her on some hormones. And it didn't even matter for me in the part of the story to tell you what hormones, because it's just the fact that we put her on hormones. And what happened later? A month later, she came back. Her sex drive was now great. It was actually through the roof, but she was pissed off all the time. Her hair was falling out. Her hot flashes had gotten worse. And why? Because the hormones were too much for her. So over time, I adjusted her hormones and checked her levels. And now her levels had come up over the baseline of her original levels, but her hormones still looked low. However, over time and following the patterns, the hormones she was on, her hair started growing back. The hot flashes were gone. The sex drive was back. However, she wasn't pissed off at her husband now. She was actually having sex. The vaginal dryness was good. Everything was good. But lo and behold, the labs still showed low. So according to the lab normals, her labs were low. But symptomatically and clinically, all her symptoms were perfect. So what was the moral of the story? Lab levels don't show the whole picture. Lab patterns do. Because every time I tried to adjust her to what made the laboratory happy, her symptoms got worse. But every time I kept her in her range based on what her body was showing us, she was perfect. So that brings up that lab levels are basically what are the averages for that laboratory that you're looking at, like whether it's testosterone, estrogen, whatever level you're looking at. What is that laboratory's average? What are they seeing? What is their normal range? It doesn't mean that your body's going to follow the book, or it doesn't mean that that is your laboratory range. So patterns are going to be really important to follow. So once again, you can have normal estrogen and still have massive estrogen imbalance. You can have normal testosterone and still have very low libido. We need to get you to your normal and follow those patterns over time. Myth number 2, hormones are dangerous. Well, first of all, this came from old studies, the Women's Health Initiative, on synthetic or non-natural progestins. And it was mainly the progestins, the non-natural progestins in that study that were the problem, not bioidentical hormones. So why is that? Well, these hormones exist because you can't patent what naturally occurs. So for companies to protect their intellectual property, they take something natural, tweak the molecule. Now it's a novel molecule that can now be intellectually protected with a patent. So that's the only reason that these hormones even exist in the market. My personal opinion, it's criminal. I think we do a disservice to men and women when we have the presence of these hormones. And I don't even think that they should be used in humans because of how they are processed in the body down an inflammatory pathway. Okay. Ignore that little side conversation, but the biggest thing is progesterone does not equal progestins. There's a big, big difference. And so we want to use what the body recognizes and what the body can use and function with, which is bioidentical, bioequivalent natural hormones. So myth number 3, pellets are the best option. Well, for some, yes. For others, no. The pellets are kind of like the Ron Popeil of hormones. Set it, forget it. These are little tablets that are implanted underneath the skin, and they're basically going to leach out hormones over a period of 3 months. Now, why are they not great? Well, the body doesn't really like things that are at steady state. The receptors respond to things that are going up and down. So daily dosing, weekly dosing of hormones is better than something like a pellet that lasts for months on end. Now, I'm not against pellets. I just think that biologically and naturally, they're not ideal. We do use pellets in my practice. I personally use pellets, and it is very nice and convenient. So for some people, this is a wonderful option. However, just remember that the body will tune out things that stay at steady state. So if your hormone pellets don't seem to be working, it may be that your receptors have started to tune it out. So sometimes you need to give yourself a little pellet break to get the receptors functioning. Once again, pellets, a tool in the toolbox, not a perfect answer for everybody in every situation. So the myth number 4, estrogen causes breast cancer. This is probably one of the most harmful myths that have happened in women's health. First of all, the data show that estrogen does not cause breast cancer. Estrogen protects brain, bone, heart, and longevity. And in fact, newer studies are showing out that in women with a personal diagnosis of breast cancer, we are doing them a disservice by not using hormone therapy on them. Even if you have the genes for potentially a cancer, does not necessarily guarantee you're going to get that cancer because genes can be turned on and off. Now, further, I don't like making blanket statements. I'm not going to say estrogen is perfectly safe for everybody in every situation, but talk to your practitioner and find out if it's appropriate for you. The key is that these hormones are not unsafe and that there are safe ways for us to use them, monitor them, and hormones in balance are what we're shooting for. So the conversation about hormones causing cancer, it's very nuanced, but estrogen is not the villain. Myth number 5, testosterone is only for men. First of all, nope. All of us have testosterone, and women need it too for libido, muscle, motivation, confidence, mental sharpness, metabolic health, bone strength, orgasmic function. Testosterone is a woman's hormone too. And each one of us starts to see a decline in testosterone beginning in our 30s. Unfortunately, that's the natural decline that happens. So we need to start thinking as testosterone as a tool, not just for men, but also for women. Myth number 6, hormones fix everything. Well, if hormones were magic, every 25-year-old would be a glowing unicorn. So hormones are a foundation, not a finish line. So hormones are, once again, a tool in our toolbox, and it is our responsibility as a practitioner to use those tools properly, and as a consumer to find practitioners who know how to use those tools properly. And when they're not working, figuring out why. All right, so now let's get into the hormone synergy model and talk about what actually works. So this is something that I have developed over years from my personal journey with hormones, from the lack of education that was out there in the medical community. And so what I've come up with at the International Pause Institute is what I call the hormone synergy model. It's the only way to truly restore midlife vitality. And so, what we need to look at is the hormones and how they're connected, whether it's estrogen, progesterone, testosterone, thyroid, DHEA, insulin, cortisol. How are they all connected, and how do we get them to function together? Because remember, they are a team, they're all important, they're not working by themselves. The foundations, if we don't address foundations, the hormones will never work. So the foundations, there's 6 essential ones: sleep, strength, stress, protein, gut health, inflammation control, because hormones can't thrive unless these are all optimized and normalized. So we need to take a look at all these aspects of life. There's also the lifestyle matrix. This is where we need to decrease the stressors on the body. That may be decreasing alcohol, plastics, toxins, circadian rhythm disruptions, so sleep disruptions, nutrient deficiencies and inflammatory foods, chronic stress, and other chemicals in our lives. Yes, these all matter, and they're all affecting your stress, your inflammation, and therefore your hormone levels. The sexual vitality layer. This is a biggie because, listen, all the Viagra in the world is not going to fix things, and they haven't come up with a horny pill yet. So, what do we need for good sexual functioning? Number one, blood flow. And that if you're a man and you're experiencing erectile dysfunction or you're not waking up with erections, this is your big giant red flag. It's your big warning sign that something is going on with your cardiovascular system, and get to a cardiologist, cardiovascular doctor as soon as possible. But we need things like blood flow, pelvic health, lubrication, things like desire, pleasure, and orgasmic function all come in together. And that also is dependent on brain health. Your brain is your most important sex organ. So if we don't keep brain health happy, then nothing else below is going to be happy. So these are not luxuries. These are biomarkers for whole body health. So if the sex is not where it's supposed to be, it's not because you're getting older. There's a bigger picture going on, and we need to look at inflammation. We need to look at stress. We need to look at brain health. We need to look at blood flow. So let's get into a couple real life stories and give you some examples. So here's the woman with the normal labs. She had night sweats, weight gain, no libido, constant exhaustion, and her labs looked fine. And that's what she was told by her practitioner. Your labs are all normal. But her progesterone was starting to bottom out. And her cortisol, which was not being tested by her regular doctor, was in the gutter. The pattern had completely flipped. And lesser known to her, her microbiome, her gut health was also a mess. So we didn't just throw hormones at her, because that is not going to fix anything. If I threw hormones at a person that looked like this, she's just going to feel either the same or if not worse. So what we need to do is we actually supported her stress axis, sleep, and gut. So by looking at her gut microbiome and getting that functioning well, doing lifestyle interventions to improve sleep, and then also doing some things to build resilience and resistance to stress. So 4 weeks later, making some of these simple changes, she started sleeping better. Her body composition actually started changing, and her brain started coming back. So we started to get improvements that now would make adding hormones to this picture work even better. So then we had a man with no motivation. He used to be fit, active, driven, and then suddenly, what seemed like suddenly to him, overnight, low mood, low muscle, low libido, dragging through the day, living on coffee in the morning and alcohol at night, and incredibly low energy. And lo and behold, his testosterone was low, but also his thyroid conversion was very high. And more important, his gut inflammation was sky high, really sucking away and affecting those hormones. So after optimizing gut health, stress, resilience, and then adding a little bit of testosterone into the mix once everything was balanced, he now got his mojo back. So he's back to lifting, his relationship is thriving, and he feels 20 years younger. And then we have a patient with the pellet roller coaster. She was a woman on pellets and she came in crying. She felt anxious, overstimulated, moody, irritable, and her levels were through the roof. So she was getting a testosterone pellet, and it was like a hot flashing, roid raging, menopausal woman. So now once pellets are in place, you can't remove them. You can wear them off. You have to wait for them to wear off. So this one gives you, this one takes a little bit more time, but there are many things that can balance the hormones, support the system. So using herbs like ashwagandha to help with cortisol balance, you doing more mindfulness and gratitude journaling, and helping with detoxification of the hormones using things like calcium deglucuronidase or even DIM to help balance out and help metabolism. One key that you can do on your own to help with hormone metabolism is to get pooping. Yes, I said get pooping. So a lot of our hormones are excreted in the stool. And so if you're constipated, you'll just reabsorb those hormones. So adding more fiber and fluids and probiotics and fermented foods into the diet get you pooping and get you metabolizing those hormones better. So in that patient, we got her bowels moving, optimized her detox pathways, restored her gut health. And what she says was, I feel like myself for the first time in years. So here's the thing. There is hope. I have plenty of examples of people who've been in your exact shoes that have turned things around and have gotten back to feeling wonderful. So what should you do now? So if you're listening thinking, oh, wow, this is me, here's what I want you to do. First of all, you're not crazy. It's not the aging process. You're not broken. Life isn't over. You're not failing. This is your body speaking, and it's time to decode the message. So, number one, listen to your symptoms, write them down, follow them over time. Don't rely solely on your basic labs. And even then with labs, it should be patterns over time. Understand that there is a hormone synergy and watch your pattern unfold. Support your sleep, your stress, your strength, your protein, your gut. Look into getting a functional hormone evaluation and finding out what is the real picture. What is your cortisol? What is your cortisol pattern? Don't fear hormones. Hormones are your friend. Now, hormones are, they're a tool in your toolbox, and we need to start understanding them and working with them to get them to work for you. So if this episode resonated deeply, and if you're tired of guessing, tired of feeling off, tired of not recognizing yourself, this is exactly why I created the International Pause Institute. We specialize in precise hormone mapping, root cause diagnostics, menopause and andropause optimization, libido and sexual vitality, muscle metabolism and weight resets, gut and microbiome analysis, and custom hormone and lifestyle protocols. So make sure you visit the Pause Institute. There is a free hormone quiz, which gives you a kind of an idea where you may be starting out. And make sure you explore our Pause protocol and programs at the Pause Institute. So everything I mentioned is going to be in the show notes. And once again, thank you for listening to 40s Forward, where we refuse to fade, we evolve. Aging isn't a downfall, it's an upgrade waiting for your permission. Your hormones, your metabolism, your libido, your confidence, they are absolutely reclaimable. This is your new era, and I'm honored to guide you through it. So stay bold, stay curious, and always remember, we're not going downhill, we're leveling up. See you next time on 40s Forward.
Life gets better after 40, clearer vision, brighter glow. I'm not fading, I'm ascending. This is the best I've ever known. Stronger, bolder. this is where I rise and shine. 40s forward, full of purpose. I'm stepping into my